How you doing, good people? This is Dave Bit Animal. All right, we're gonna go back to the not quite the early days of the NES, but the days when third parties really started to plant their flag. All right, one third party in particular that kind of rose to high popularity in these days was Tecmo. Tecmo had a knack for taking their arcade titles, tweaking them to make them viable for the home market, and releasing them onto home consoles with great success. Matter of fact, the only two games that they didn't do this with were Star Force and Solomon's Key. Some of Tecmo's more popular titles were Rygar, Mighty Bomb Jack, um, and Tecmo Bowl. But one genre that they hadn't touched at that point were wrestling games until about 1990, when Tecmo took their knowledge of game making, uh, used some of the techniques that had gained them prominence on the NES earlier. Most notably, their cutscene technology, which was called cinema scenes at that point. And they made a wrestling game that, in all honesty, revolutionized wrestling games at that point because it added many of the tenets that you even see up to today in wrestling games. That game was Tecmo World Wrestling for the NES. Now, Tecmo World Wrestling, one thing you'll notice about it when you pop it in, it doesn't have a license attached to it. These are all original characters created by Tecmo. Uh, the wrestlers range from there's a wrestler from Greece, there's a wrestler from Japan, there's a wrestler from a luchador from Mexico, there is a British wrestler, a Russian wrestler. They're from all over, and they all have a relatively deep move set, especially for the NES days. This game featured probably the first announcer in wrestling games, Tommy Talker, where he would constantly chatter on about the moves that are happening during a match. There was a training mode at the beginning of your first match to build up as much extra power as possible to make your character harder to beat, a little bit stronger as far as doling out punishment. And there was definitely a final boss. And to be quite honest, the announcer at the end of the game, the speech he gives may be the most nonsensical thing that I've ever witnessed in a wrestling game. Tecmo World Wrestling is a fantastic game. It's incredibly deep. If you're a fan of that genre and you have an NES, this game is incredibly cheap and very plentiful. You should get a copy. But I say that about everything that I've been talking about, mainly because these games are not hard to find and they're cheap. If someone's charging you more than $10, hell, if somebody's charging you more than $7.50 for a copy of Tecmo World Wrestling, you might want to find out where they live and slap them because it's not worth it. This is the 8-Bit Animal. I'll catch y'all tomorrow.